Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Hey everybody, and welcome to another My Angular story. This week we're talking to Torgeir Helgevold. I hope I got somewhere close to that. You were on episode 108 of the Adventures in Angular show last September, talking about web workers. Do you want to say hi?
Hey, how's it going?
Do you want to just give us a brief introduction? Let us know where you're at now and things like that.
Yeah, so right now, I just started a new job a couple of months ago, working for Narwhal.
Everybody's going to Narwhal.
Yeah. So we're working on helping enterprise clients do Angular the right way, and like you said, we're growing and we're having a great time. I think we're up to 9 people now.
Nice. Yeah, I swear, every time I talk to somebody new, they're like, "Oh, I'm at Narwhal now."
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, is Narwhal 100% remote, if I remember right?
Yeah, we all work from home. Like we're in a lot of different places. Some are on the west. Most of us are in California. I'm in New York, and then Victor's up in Toronto, and then we have people in London too, actually. So it's we're spread spread across a large area and time zones, but we still are able to communicate well over video chat and Slack and stuff like that. So it's working out well.
Cool. Well, on this show, we try and capture people's story. We try to, talk about where they came from, how they got into coding, where they're at now, and all of those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and start at the very beginning. How did you get into programming?
Right. So I think I was trying to think about that. I think it was in high school that I actually started writing some code for the first time. I had bought a book about Visual Basic, which I think was a pretty good way to start because they had like a kind of like a GUI-based editor where you could kind of drag and drop controls onto a form and create UIs very quickly and then fill in some code as you learn how to code. It was super basic back then, but it was probably how I got started. But I didn't get serious until I actually started college, where I started, more serious languages like C++ and assembly language for a little bit, and even Pascal. It's been a while since college, so some of these I worked with some of these older languages for a while, but it gave me like a good foundation. So I'm happy that I kind of went that route.
Awesome. So from there, I'm curious, how did you get into JavaScript or Angular or both? Was it both at the same time, or was it one and then the other?
It was more gradual. Like I started with, I used to resist JavaScript for the longest time. I was more of a back-end developer for the longest time. And I really didn't like JavaScript at all. But then I think around 2010, I started working with something called KnockoutJS, which I really liked, because it started kind of enforcing some patterns that I was used to from more of my server-side background, where typical like coding patterns like models and views and more clearer separation. And so I kind of started working with that, and that was kind of my entry into more serious and more complicated JavaScript coding. And from there, I at that point, like Knockout was great for creating like just views and like bound views and single like independent like views, but not like a whole application, not like a single page app. So then from there, I went into using something called Durandal, which was kind of a SPA framework that used Knockout, but it added all these other pieces like a router and more like SPA features that would enhance what you could do with just Knockout. And after that, I kind of went into more like AngularJS coding, which is those two frameworks, like the AngularJS framework and Durandal, are kind of similar in their capabilities. So it wasn't the transition was relatively easy. And I think that was around maybe 2013 that I started working with AngularJS, or I guess we called it Angular. I guess we just called it Angular 1 back then, but I guess AngularJS is the term that they prefer now.
That's interesting. Yeah, I remember talking to Rob about Durandal and then Aurelia as it became. And yeah, it's interesting to see where all of these different frameworks have wound up. And Knockout, I don't hear anyone talking about Knockout anymore. In fact, I've talked to some of the Knockout experts that we had on JavaScript Jabber a while back, and they've all moved on to other things. So
yeah, I haven't really kept up with that framework, but it was really kind of the framework that kind of got me interested in JavaScript. I really liked the structure, because I came from like a .NET background, and that framework kind of followed a very similar model to like the whole Windows, the Windows Presentation Foundation, the whole like the desktop framework for creating desktop applications in .NET. So I've done some work with that, and also some Silverlight actually, and it kind of followed a very similar pattern to those two frameworks in JavaScript.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I don't really know where that framework is at right now, and I haven't used it in years. But yeah, you're right. I don't really hear much about it either.
Yep. So, I mean, that's interesting too. I think a lot of us, let me back up, because I don't know if that's a fair characterization. A lot of us that have been in the community for a while, we all kind of came up through other frameworks. So when I got into web development, we moved from jQuery to Backbone to, something like Knockout or similar. I played with Ember.js. And then eventually, somebody got me into Angular, and I was like, this is cool. This is, this is kind of the kind of web development that I like to do. What was it about Angular that made you want to stick around?
So I did like the whole experience that they gave you, like a framework that you could build a whole app in. And it was relatively intuitive, I thought. I liked that, at least in the beginning, I liked that they kind of made everything a little bit seamless, like the whole data binding concept, where you basically could just work with plain JavaScript objects instead of having an explicit kind of kickoff of the change detection cycle. Where they kind of have it like they do this whole dirty checking, right? And other frameworks where you have to be more explicit. You have to make like like in Knockout, you do like, I guess, like an applied bindings call to say, let's do this. Or have more explicit like functions, where instead of assigning a vanilla property, your observables there are functions, so that when they're called, you're basically calling things more explicitly. So it's like a little different from the way you would normally apply your values to your properties.
Right.
Which was the only thing I kind of didn't like about Knockout, was that they had they had this concept of like observable functions more than properties. Like you would call a function, so it would be a little, but it's all about habit. But that was one thing I really liked about Angular, where they kind of hid that part. Although that has its downsides too, but at the same time, at least when I was starting out with Angular, I liked that they took away that complexity of remembering. You had to actually declare something as like a ko.observable or whatever it was. It's been a while, but I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of it too is there was a really big community behind Angular, so that's also always very helpful when you're starting. You kind of, if you have some kind of problem, chances are you'll find an example or like a Stack Overflow answer that helps you along. Whereas if you're working with a framework that has a much smaller community behind it, you're a little bit more on your own, you know?
Yep. So, what kinds of things have you done with Angular? I mean, what are the things that you're most proud of?
Oh, you're talking about the old or the new now?
Either one. Okay.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff that I'm proud of has happened in the new version. Like, I think it was back in 2015 was when I actually got started with the new version. It was like in the very early alpha stages because, you know, they put out their builds early on and stuff was it was changing a lot. So it wasn't like the APIs weren't stable, but the code that was pushed for every release was pretty stable so that you could still do pretty interesting stuff with it. So what I've done is I've built up like a kind of like a demo project where I kind of try out all kinds of things related to Angular. Like I have a lot of focus on like build systems and bundling and optimizations around that. So I've set up like a pretty extensive demo of how to actually bundle and package up Angular using pretty much any bundler under the sun at this point. And I think that's kind of been a very interesting project for me to work on, like Closure Compiler, Rollup, Webpack, and all these different. I'm doing some Bazel work now, and I think it's a lot of fun to kind of play with those technologies as they're being, like, some of them aren't like super stable or they're still evolving, but it's fun to be part of that project, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It's funny because we saw kind of this rapid succession of different ways of doing web frameworks. And it seems like everything's kind of settled on sort of the component way of thinking about things. And a lot of the ideas around that, Shadow DOM, things like that, you know, Angular, React, and Vue all have concepts that are very similar to those, if not the same. And so, you know, I've been talking to people and I'm like, well, you know, where do we see things moving next? You know, and there was some steam that kind of built behind progressive web apps, and that's kind of leveled off. And it's like, okay, so, you know, where are we going next? And the next big problem that I see most people struggling with is build. And so
yeah,
it's fascinating that it's like, oh, okay, well, here's how you build with whatever tool you want to build.
Yeah, and I think now in large applications, we're seeing like a scalability issue in the build, like the dev environment, basically, because it takes so long to rebuild. Like for every change that you make, so that's where I think Bazel will come in and help with that and be more incremental, so that you only rebuild what you need instead of like the larger app every time. So I see a lot of need for that in larger projects.
Yeah, I also see that that's going to be the next area of training and automation. We see a lot of that with like the CLIs and things, you know, where they have a lot of the build built in. But yeah. I really think that's going to be the next area where we see movement. Yeah.
And it's already kind of close now. The Angular team is kind of still working out some kinks and establishing some guidelines, but they've come a really long way with that. And things, if you know what you're doing, you can already use it now. But I mean, there's a little bit of a setup cost and learning cost. But I think like if you follow those demo projects that the Angular team has put out, you can pretty much do most of the things that you're doing today in a more like streamlined build. But it is a little bit. There's a little bit of a startup learning curve there.
Yep, absolutely. So is that kind of what you're working on now, or do you have some other projects in the works?
Yeah, I've been kind of collaborating a little bit with the Angular team on the Bazel stuff. We did like a hackathon right before Christmas where we worked a little bit on production builds in Bazel, like just did an early prototype of what that might look like in like at least one version of it. And then I thought that was actually a really interesting, and I learned a lot from that. So that was great. I enjoyed that a lot. It's basically combining rollup with Basel, like for a production build, which was interesting work.
That's cool. Now, one other thing that you mentioned at some point, when we were talking a little bit about Narwhal, what exactly are you doing there? Is it mostly training and things like that, or are you into some other areas of Angular with relation to Narwhal?
Yeah, so I mainly do client work, consulting. I work. Right now I'm working for a client, helping them set up a project and get that project started, and eventually we'll bring on the client will bring on their own people after a while, but we're helping them get things started and off to a good start. So it's been a great project so far.
Awesome. So I'm curious, because it seems like Narwhal also works pretty closely with the Angular team. What kinds of things are you looking forward to coming out in Angular?
Right, so I'm really excited for the Basel stuff. Like I mentioned already, that's one of the, because that's so related to the stuff that I've been kind of playing with, like build systems and optimizations at that level. And so that's probably right now the thing that excites me the most, I would say. And yeah, probably that's the most thing. That's the thing that I think will have the most value.
Right.
That's coming soon.
Very cool. We should get you on Adventures in Angular to talk about Basel.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. We'll follow up with that after the episode. The last segment of this show is the picks. Do you have some things that you want to shout out about on the show? This episode is sponsored by Linode. Linode is offering listeners of this podcast a $20 credit, which is good for 4 free months at their lowest plan. Their plans start at 1 gigabyte of RAM for $5 a month. You can get your servers in any of their 10 data centers, and their high memory plans start at 16 gigabytes. Get a server running in under a minute. They do hourly billing with a monthly cap on all plans and add-on services like backups, node balancers, Longview, etc. VMs for full control, running Docker containers, encrypted disks, VPNs, etc. You can run a private Git server. They provide native SSD storage, 40 gigabit network, and Intel E5 processors. They have 24/7 friendly support, even on holidays, and a 7-day money-back guaranteed. So go check them out at linode.com/myangularstory.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the Angular team, and particular Alex Eagle, who's been kind of owning that whole Basel initiative, because that's been something that's been going on for a really long time, and I don't think people realize how much work has gone into that yet, because they haven't seen it yet. But I think when they see it, they'll appreciate it a lot. So I think he deserves a shout out for that. So he's been definitely many people have been involved, but he's been kind of the guy leading it. So I think that was, he's done a lot of impressive work there.
Cool. I'm going to do a couple of shout outs here. Now, last week I was at CES. And if you listen to all of the My Story shows, you're going to get some CES picks over the next few weeks, because I kind of picked the same kinds of things on each of the shows, but there wasn't crossover between the guests, so I can get away with it. Anyway, a few of the things that I saw there, actually about 20 or 30, I think I had like 20 videos that I recorded of different things there. So definitely check that out. Just go to if you go to YouTube and check out devchat.tv, or if you go to devchat.tv/YouTube, you should be able to find the CES 2018 video playlist, and then you can kind of see what we saw there. I didn't record videos for everything I had. I had battery issues the last day or so, and so some of the stuff I'm getting review units shipped to me, and then I'll be showing that stuff off as I get it. But one of the things that anyway, it was kind of a personal, interesting more than anything else, was Bluetooth headphones. I've been wanting to go wireless for a while. And so some of the ones that I either saw or got to try out, I'm just going to shout out about those, and then I'll pick some of the other stuff next time. But I actually bought myself some Apple AirPods, because it seems like those are the ones that people are talking about the most in my circles. And I wanted something that was familiar for them to compare it to. So I'm going to pick them. These are the ones that I've been using probably the most over the last few days, mainly just because they fit nicely in my ears because they just sit in my ears. They don't go into my ear canal. The other two that I did try out do insert into the ear canal, but they have different functionality and different capabilities that I really like. And I'll do a full review on them, and you can go watch the videos. But one of them is a pair from Crazy Baby. They're, like I said, Bluetooth headphones. They're completely wireless or waterproof and wireless, but they're completely waterproof, down to like 2 meters or 6 feet, 6.5. I don't know, whatever 2 meters is in feet. So I think it's almost 7 feet. Anyway, it's really, really nice just being able to, go in the water with them. Now, the other ones are splash, water resistant. So, you can wear them in the rain and stuff. You probably get away with wearing them in the shower. I don't know if I'd try that with any but the waterproof ones, but you can. But they work really well. So the Crazy Baby ones are waterproof, and they have a lot of the touch gestures that you can do with them. And so I'm curious to see exactly how they come out. I haven't tried them yet, but they're one of the units I'm going to review. And then the other one, they sent me theirs a couple months ago before CES, so I could try them out before I went. And that's the Bragi Dash Pro, and they are really nice headphones. By the way, the price points on all of these are about the same. I think the AirPods were $130 to $150. Crazy Baby ones were $130. And I got their Pro edition, not their Classic edition or whatever, which are $100 and not waterproof. And they're not as highly functional either. And then you've got the Bragi Pro, and those run about $150, $160. And the Bragi Pro, they have all kinds of things that you can do with them. So you can swipe up or swipe down to raise or lower the volume, which I kind of miss on the AirPods. They don't have the volume switch on them. And I need to go look and see what exactly the gestures are, because you can tap the AirPods to get the Siri Assistant. With the Bragi Pro, you tap the side of your face, actually, and it detects that and brings up Siri. But the thing that I really like about the Bragi Pro, they're a little bit heavier than the other ones, but they have a lot more gestures to them, including my favorite one, which is if the phone rings and you want to answer it, you just nod your head. And if it rings and you don't want to answer it, you shake your head. And if you shake your head, while it's ringing, then it'll disconnect, it'll hang up on them basically, or send them to voicemail, which is actually what it does. But anyway, so it's like hitting the red button, the do not answer button on your phone screen. So anyway, cool stuff, lots of cool stuff. I had a whole bunch of coding toys that teach kids to code that I'm going to be reviewing as well over the next little while. And some AR stuff that was really cool. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, go check out what is available on the devchat.tv YouTube channel. And then, also let me know if there are certain things that you wanted me to cover. Mostly what I covered were IoT stuff. There was some VR and AR stuff. There were also some video and audio production stuff. And then a few other like healthcare gadgets that were interesting to me because I have family members who have chronic pain or Parkinson's disease and stuff like that. And I just put it all on the channel, so you can pick and choose if you want. But yeah, if there are things that you want me to cover at these kinds of events, let me know, and that way next time I go, I can make sure that we see those as well. But anyway, Tor, if people want to follow you on Twitter or GitHub or see what you're working on these days, what are the best places to do that?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Helgevold, and I have my own GitHub account there too, and there's also a link to my blog there. I put a lot of my stuff on my blog, so my blog is syntaxsuccess.com. That's basically where I document everything I'm working on, and you'll find a lot of build related stuff and some basal stuff there. So if you're interested in that, check it out there, and let me know if you have any questions about the content.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming and sharing your story. We'll come back at you all with another story next week. Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.